Well, good morning, fellow Rotarians and guests. You are in for a treat today because we are spotlighting a literacy program from the Stillwater Sunrise Club. Before the program starts, however, I do want to do a commercial for our district literacy team. They have been working very hard to update the content on the website, so I hope that you will check out. Go to resources, vocational service, literacy, and you will find not only information about how to develop a program, some goals, but also some activities that go under each avenue of service, plus some links to the Rotary International. But again, I want to welcome you. I don't think I told you who I am, but I'm Patricia McLeese from the Greater Rochester Rotary and also the district literacy team person. So we are very excited again to introduce the program from the Stillwater Sunrise Club. You will have two presenters, Dave Waldschmidt and Don Schuld. Dave wants to introduce the speakers, and so it's all yours, Dave. Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Patricia. I think we'll just start off. Don, why don't you lead off with a brief introduction, and I'll follow up as to who we are, and then I'll dive into the program.
I'm Don Schuld, and for most of my professional adult life, I have been a director of special education or special services, in charge of special education and health programs and Title I reading and math programs and the like. And 11 of those years were for the Stillwater area public schools. And I've been a Rotarian for now 21 years. And a great Rotarian from the past, Mary Jo Weingarten, was the one that invited me into the club 21 years ago. So pleased to be a continuing member of our great group.
Yeah, thanks, Don. And just as a brief introduction to my background, I, like Don, I started out in education, teaching at the high school level in my 20s, and then went back to graduate school and moved into principally the healthcare industry and worked in administration for the most of the balance of my career in that field. I've been a Rotarian. I keep calling myself a newbie. Someday I'll have to lose that designation, but I joined Stillwater Sunrise Rotary in 2017. And at the time, Don was the chair of the literacy committee. He's handed that role over to me a couple of years ago. And Don and I kind of launched into this endeavor, which we're going to share with you today. We call it the program Volunteers for Elementary School Literacy. It's a program that we run in conjunction with the Stillwater Public Elementary Schools. It's in kind of full disclosure, it's, I wouldn't call it a program that it's in its infancy, but nor are we far beyond our infancy, I would say. We have started the program in the school year of 2018 to 2019, and we made some significant strides during that year, and then in the following year, really ramped it up in terms of the number of volunteers and what we were able to do. And we were, I think, just hitting our stride when COVID hit. And COVID, of course, put us on the sidelines. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later in the presentation. But it's a growing program, and we'll share it with you today. So, Don, if you want to hit the next slide, I'm going to just lead off with a quote from one of our own volunteers and Rotarians, Linda Halbert. We were recognized by the school board, the Stillwater School Board, in, I think it was January of 2020. And a few of us made a couple comments at the school board appreciating the recognition. And Linda led off with this quote, which I will just repeat here, set the flavor for the meeting today. I am so happy to be able to help the librarian, and I'm very pleased to be able to work in the library as well. But there is nothing more moving than to see the smiles on the faces of the students I've been able to connect with. I know it is important for the students to be reading the letters and words, but for me, I am reading their faces for that big smile. And I think Linda did an excellent job of capturing the spirit of this program, and I lead off with that and share that with you as we kind of set the flavor for our conversation today. I'd like to flip it over to you, Don, and have Don talk about the origins of the program, and I'll pick it up afterwards.
Our Stillwater Sunrise Rotary Club has always had a large focus on working with education, in particular with the Stillwater area public schools, which extends not only in Stillwater proper, but down to Lake Elmo and Afton and all the way up to Marine on the north. And but the majority of our area of focus has really been on the high school age group, where we've been actively involved in a program called Strive, which is a mentorship and scholarship program for at-risk students, as well as a boat building project with our area learning center students. Some of you that may have been to our Brewers Bazaar in the past few years may have seen one of their canoes or kayaks that they built as part of a class project focusing on science, engineering, technology, and math. And but again, that focus was all on the high school level areas. And we met with a couple administrators from Stillwater area public schools with the question in mind, are there things that you need help with, particularly at the elementary age level? I think it's important that if you're looking at helping a school, you need to know where their areas of need are. And yes, we have lots of great ideas, but if it doesn't necessarily fit in with the curriculum instruction that they've worked tirelessly on to bring the best possible to students, we could be providing things that are not going to be of that significant benefit. So we met with, at the time, he was an assistant superintendent of Stillwater, and he was also a Sunrise Rotary Club member, and also with the director of teaching and learning. And we identified two main areas of need. One was media center staffing, and the other was trying to help the school reach that goal of all students reading at grade level by third grade. Media center teachers, first of all, are teachers, and they do much more than just make sure that the books are filed in the right place, the right books are ordered, and basically running the media center. They also, in most cases, are teachers. They work with the students in teaching them how to access and use the library, how to research projects, and they're really critical to students' literacy and reading instruction. But as funding has become tight Stillwater area is a pretty wealthy community. However, the tax base, at least in support of schools, is not near what it is on like the western side, as is sometimes called the Gold Coast out in the Edina area and Wayzata and so on. And what was happening is, as budgets became tighter, the district wanted to make sure they could keep class sizes reasonable, and that sometimes meant that media center teachers were being cut. And the existing media center teachers then, instead of being assigned to one school, then became responsible for the media centers and media center instruction in 2 or 3 schools. So this was identified as a big need, and it soon became very aware to us once we started just what a challenge it is for the media center teacher, especially bouncing from one school to another, and with the huge amount of books that come in and go out on a daily basis. And if they're just sitting in big piles and big bins, they're not accessible to the student. So, and then of course, the other big challenge is how can we assist young students in helping to reach an appropriate level of reading? The age range of before 3rd grade is so important. There are such critical neurodevelopmental phases that children go through at that age level. And if they don't get the proper instruction, proper stimulation during that time, it's going to be very difficult for them to catch up later on in school, regardless of the amount of resources that are put their way. And the students in Stillwater certainly have a wide range of backgrounds. They come to us with various skill levels. Some of them have rich family experience, some have rich preschool experiences. However, there are also many students that come from single parent families where the parent is working much of the time and doesn't or is not able to, for a number of reasons, provide some of the reading and development for their son or daughter that other students have. So we're in particular wanting to reach students that are struggling readers, not students that have a significant learning disability, but students that are struggling. And is there a way that we could pull together some volunteers to help spend one-on-one time with the students, because that extra attention, extra reading time is critically important to them. So our proposal then became to provide a volunteer pool that could assist in the school libraries. We started out where we just assisted in helping the media center teacher to get the books back on the shelves, to help make sure the shelves were, things were arranged in the correct order according to the codes or the system that's used. And because otherwise students wouldn't be able to find books that they were looking for. And also to assist students as they came through in checking out books and assisting them in searching for books on the computer to see if those books were available at the time in the library, and then helping them to find and locate those. And the second proposal, or the our next step was to eventually expand those services to assist students with their reading skills by meeting one-on-one with students in either kindergarten, first grade, or second grade. And then 3, to actually begin with 2 schools. In Stillwater proper, there are 3 elementary schools, and one of those elementary schools already has some reading support from a local church, but the other 2 had minimal support. So we have targeted those 2 to start our program. Okay, back to you, Dave.
Yeah, so the proposal translated into more specific goals that we outlined and put forward to the school administration. And these are going to complement much of what Don just said. We wanted to, number one, return valuable student interaction time to the media center teachers. So to the extent, I should say, that the media center teachers were being diverted away from student time because of the routine chores of getting books on the shelves or sitting at the desk and checking out books when they could have been working with a student. Our goal here was to interface in such a way that we would be returning some of that valuable interaction time that the media center teacher wants to have with the student. Second goal, again, corresponding to the proposal, was to, and Don touched on this, to provide the additional reading skill reinforcement to the identified students. And we'll pick that up more in the next couple of slides. And then lastly, we said to the administration that we would maintain and do the administration of the program, maintain the volunteer pool, organize the schedules, and ensure stability to the program. So our goal was to have a well-run, administered program. You can go to the, so getting into what do we do? Initially we, as Don mentioned, we started the program out and we said we're going to put the reading with the students in a kind of like a second phase. And so when at the beginning of the school year, we did some orientation in the libraries, got familiar with them, and worked principally in the media centers, shelving books initially, learning how to check books in and out with the system that schools use. They have a district-wide system. Learning how to provide catalog assistance to the students. This picture here kind of demonstrates a typical day in the library where a student is looking for a book, and I'm assisting to see if the book is in or checked out and where it would be in the library with the student. Oftentimes we're doing this at a time when the media center teacher is present with the class. And if we weren't there, the media center teacher would be sitting here at the desk working, trying to find the catalog book or doing this kind of activity when there are 10 or 15 other students looking for her attention. So desk management, when the media center teacher is present with the class is kind of a huge thing. It's very helpful. We've picked up other kinds of assignments, such as repairing damaged books, locating lost books. The Rutherford, much of this depends upon what the media center teacher is, how she's communicating to us about what her needs are. So at Rutherford School, for example, the media center teacher came to me one day and said, I can't get to the project of looking for lost books. So I went over it with her, what we needed to do. We put it in a little binder, and whenever one of us came in, we did our shelving of the books, which is the main chore we want to get done right away, to keep those books in circulation. And then we pick up these other tasks and help with this. Otherwise, the media center teacher is either not going to get to it or spend time in on weekends, late afternoons, and so forth. Yeah, so this turns out to be, this is really the, I think, the backbone of our program, and it's the most productive part of what we do in terms of returning actual time back to the school district. Don, you can take it to the next slide. This slide deals with the reading assistance that we provide. And again, here you see a picture of Don working with a student. This is at Stonebridge. The volunteers will all receive a 1-hour training, like workshop, seminar, whatever you want to call it, in dialogic reading technique, which is a nice word to what I refer to it as is how a grandparent reads to a grandchild. And it's pretty self-intuitive, but it teaches us how we can help a student who's learning to read for comprehension and engage in dialogue about the subject matter and what you're reading and what they're observing and what the pictures in the book are saying to the student and how they feel about it, and eliciting these kinds of comments in from the student. So all volunteers are now participating in the reading aspect of the program, and this is pretty significant. As I mentioned, we didn't do that right off the bat. That was kind of a phase 2. As we got more public recognition for the program, we drew in volunteers from the community, and we have approximately a dozen volunteers working between the 2 schools now. We staff 2 days a week, and everybody is engaged in the reading aspect of the program, or was right before the COVID pandemic hit. I think it's kind of given us that point where we've reached a critical mass where we're actually now making some strides with the reading aspect of the program. We can see students that we're working with from week to week making progress. The schools will handle it differently from one school to another. Rutherford tends to be very much emphasis on the dialogic reading, whereas Stonebridge asks us to work with sight words, letter sounds, and so forth. You can go on in the program administration. Thanks. You can move it to the, there we go, thanks. Yeah, so the program administration is we work with the oversight of the Office of the Director of Learning Technology. So as the Rotary lead, I'm working with this administrator on a regular basis, always keeping him abreast of what we're doing, how the program is going. If we're running into any kind of some questions or difficulties or anything, we would go straight to him. As the lead of the program from Rotary, I will work with the media center teachers and the instructional coaches, and to understand their needs, the hours that they prefer us to be on site. The instructional coaches are the ones who will work directly with the classroom teachers to identify which students are going to be pulled aside for us to work with them. And I almost hesitate to use that phrase, pulled aside, because I initially wondered whether this was going to be something the student would resent, and it's quite the opposite. The students kind of get a kick out of doing this with us. They some of the interactions are actually delightful and humorous at times. And they take tremendous pride in showing us what progress they've made from one week to the next with how they identify their words or the books they can read and so forth. The instructional coaches will stay on top of the list of students who need the assistance. Typically, we're working with about 3 students. Donna, you can comment on that as to how many you have. But it's about 3 students each day that we're in there, and they're usually the same student, although there'll be at different times of the year, they'll rotate a student in and out of the schedule, again, depending on, like Don said, the needs of the student. And then lastly, as the Rotary lead, I take responsibility for the scheduling and put out a schedule, a 2-month schedule every month I'm looking ahead and putting the schedule out of volunteers. I think we can move it to the next.
I'll just chime in quick that typically we would have 3 students assigned to us, and we would be able to stick with the same 3 over a period of time. And part of the thing that determined whether we keep the 3 is how they were progressing. In most cases, if they were taken off our list and a new student was added, it was because of the progress that the students had made. And I should also point out, you may have seen with the particular young child in kindergarten, you're really starting out with letter recognition, flashcards and alike, and then you go to words, use word cards, often with pictures and colors to go with them on those early stages of reading, and then begin to move to short sentences and actually reading some books. I guess in every case, we take time to have some book work with the students. For the real young ones, we're reading to them. But as they progress, they're reading to us, or at least reading along with us.
And then just a kind of a little bit of administrative tasks here, but a volunteer prior to their first shift will go through a school security clearance. Rotary lead arranges for an orientation to the library. So when after we received what the school district did is they wrote an article and put it in the what they call the connection, and it's a newsletter that goes out across the school district to all the homes. It's mailed out, and it had a couple pictures in it and a very nice article about the program, and that generated some significant interest and just about doubled our pool of volunteers. So these volunteers have to go through a school clearance, and then I would take them into the library and along with the media center teacher, give them an orientation to the library. And then the instructional coaches would orient them to the reading assist program, the Dialogic reading at Rutherford and and over at Stonebridge, the reading assist that Don just described. So yeah, so that's the other part of the ongoing administration that we handle. You can
Before going to the next slide, I just like to add that typically we would work at the school one morning a week, and it was usually for about 3 hours, sometimes 3.5. And it was really an rewarding experience. First of all, it's great to read with the individual students, hear some of their stories, and um, so great when you see the progress that they make. Um, Sometimes from week to week, and how dramatic it can be at times. And knowing the benefit that we're providing to the media center teacher is also extremely gratifying, and I can't tell you how much we're appreciated by them. And also want to point out that it's also a significant physical workout, because the bookshelves in an elementary school tend to be from about the top of the bookshelves are maybe 4.5 feet high, and the lower shelves are only about 4 inches off the floor. So you're doing a whole lot of up and down as you are refiling all of the books. And so um, it's a good physical workout. And so that's just another side benefit from it.
Yeah, actually, Don, I appreciate you bringing those points up, because it does give us a little bit of a sense of what the size of the contribution to the school district is. We have, right prior to the COVID shutdown, we were running at each school 2 days a week, 2 volunteers each day, and averaging about 3 hours per day for each volunteer. So you had 6 hours of volunteer time twice a week at each school on average. So we start in October, run it through November and into December. We pick it up again in January, and the intent was to run it through the mid-May until we got shut down. But in the first year we went through mid-May. The comment Don raises about the bookshelves, it is here, most of us are retirees doing this. You can imagine this is a comment I appreciate. The expansion of the duties that the media center teachers have done has been extremely helpful, because I have had some volunteers who have just come and said the shelving of the books is too difficult to do, given the dynamics of what Don just described. And it doesn't shut down that volunteer in the library, because with the expansion of the work we have with the repairing of the books, we can put a volunteer on repairing books for 2 hours on a shift, and they won't get near completed. Also, that applies to looking for lost books and doing some of the other chores at the desk and so forth. So there's enough work to do in the library that we can accommodate everybody's ability to work and what they can handle. Yeah, so anything else on that, Don?
No, I think you covered that well.
Okay. All right. Then the next, let's see. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So Don, maybe I'm going to turn this slide over to you for program evaluation and let you talk about that.
Sure.
And then I'll come back to the next slide.
I think that it's always a challenge to evaluate a program like this, because we're assisting students in reading, but these students are also getting a great deal of reading instruction, not just from their classroom teachers, but sometimes from additional resources that the school may have. We clearly saw significant evidence that the students were making growth and learning how to read. We would have loved to have taken all the credit for that, but that wouldn't be fair. And then before we could really start evaluating the program, COVID hit and pretty much shut us down. But I think going forward, I think one of the important things is for us to be able to measure how is our impact allowing additional time for the media center teacher to work directly with students. I think that's huge. And then certainly we want to see the students grow, and we're part of the inputs. And any way that we can measure some of that, I think it's important for us to try to do so. There's no question that the teachers felt that we were making a significant impact with the students. So quantifying that, I think, is going to be a challenge as we go ahead and are able to get back to providing the program on a more normal routine basis. Switch back to you, Dave.
Yeah, and then finally, I'm going to wrap it up here with where do we go from here? We're in the process now of trying to get things ready for the next school year. Actually, this summer we'll be working again with the administration, restarting after COVID. Once we have our core group of volunteers back up and running, we'll try to publicize the program in the community and to draw in. We'd like to draw in more, grow the volunteer pool with the hopeful intent of adding on another school year, another school in a year or two. And we also have the long-range goal of potentially opening up other avenues of literacy assistance, so that if we had we envision that maybe there'll be a day when we'll have a volunteer pool, and this will be organized in such a way that a teacher can say, I've got a student struggling with mathematics, and we can pull that student aside and say, we'll help in that area, or something else in another another area that the school is looking for assistance. So we've got a lot of upside potential. Like I said, we're not in our final mature stage yet. We're a growing program, and maybe it'd be fun to come back and talk another time when we actually see where we go with it. I'll take the next slide, Don, and wrap it up. I'm going to just conclude here with another quote from one of the Rotarians who volunteers, and she says, a favorite memory of mine is after reading with the little kindergartner, she gave me a big hug, and she said, thank you for reading to me. Such a sweet moment. These little ones have to be read to and can really get into the story. Very satisfying for the ones reading to them. Janice Donnelly. So with that, we'll open it up for questions. Patricia, do you want to direct the questions?
Okay. Thank you so much for the presentation. And there were some questions in the chat box. And let me get to the chat box again. So Alan and Betty, you had a lot of questions. And the first one is, Alan was asking by the start of third grade or when it concludes, as far as getting to that third grade reading level. Is the goal for the kids to be on third grade reading level at the end of that year? Is that the goal, do you know?
My understanding, and Don, I'll also let you comment on this, but the way in which it was presented to us through the instructional coaches and the administration was that by the end of the third grade year, students should be at third grade reading level.
Great.
And they impressed upon us the powerful research that's been done in showing that this is already at third grade an indicator of long-term success in the school, in their schooling.
And Dave, is our Don. Does the school district employ the media specialists with library media training? So are these media specialists actually trained as media specialists was the question?
Don, I'm gonna give you a partial answer and lateral it to you. But so media center teachers, the term is what we would have always called librarian.
Right.
But it's so much wider and broader than library. But to the extent that they are actually media specialists, Don, I presume there's a lot more that I'm even unaware of is what they do.
The media center specialists are indeed teachers. They hold a regular teacher license with a specialty in media center. And so a big part of that is literacy as well as management of the library, but also having extensive knowledge on what books are appropriate for which age group and reading level, and how do you assist and make sure that a student is getting access to books that are appropriate and that they're going to realize a certain level of success with, rather than immediately hitting their frustration level. So yes, they are teachers, and they are employed by the district. But several years back, almost every elementary school in the district, and there were 9 elementaries previously, and now there are 7. They each had their own media center specialist, maybe with the exception of the very smallest of 2 schools where they shared, but otherwise every other school had a full-time media center specialist. And cost reductions have forced them to share media center teachers between 2, or in some cases 3 schools.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm going to go down to Alan. You have several questions in there. Did you want to just ask those questions, or I can read them? You're on mute.
I want to know for a Rotary Club that is considering starting a program, how is that done through the district administration, through a school principal? I mean, what is the avenue for getting going? Is it something that is the media center teacher told that you're going to allow the Rotarians into your library or media center? How many Rotarians does it take at the minimum to get going with this? And I'll let you answer.
I'll start with the first question. I think any district of any size, it's important to start at the district level, because typically the district is going to have curriculum and instruction programs that they oversee for the whole district. And I think it's very important that any support that they are given fits in with their overall scheme of providing literacy, or for that matter, any instruction in the schools. And we wanted to complement what they were working on, fit in with some of their goals, not just come up with a program and throw it at them and hope that it would stick. And the district level administration, the assistant superintendent and the director of the teaching area was in charge of the curriculum and instruction. And they were very careful to include the individual building principals and the media center teachers in the planning of this, to make sure that they were not only willing, but that the program was designed or tailored in a manner that they felt would have a positive impact.
Good question. Thank you.
I would just add and tag on to that, there was no issue when it came to acceptance by the MCTs, that in fact it was just almost the polar opposite. They were craving the assistance that we were able to bring into the library and help them out with. So I had at the end of the first year, when I wrapped up, I had a little wrap-up discussion with one of the media center teachers, and she had tears in her eyes when she said to me, "I don't know what I would have done this year without you guys." So,
Are the Rotarians going to have, I'm assuming, background checks, criminal background checks, and also training in sexual awareness, how to appropriately relate to children and school staff?
but we did have to go through the security clearance part. That was mandatory. They did not require any further training beyond that.
Thank you.
But that might be a good idea as we go forward to consider that. I don't know if the school district currently has a similar program for its teachers and all of its other staff. I don't know if we answered the question either about how many we need to start the program. I think, Dave, did we start with like 6, maybe
Yeah.
6 volunteers?
We had, I think, 7 people sign up. One was right away figured out that he wasn't going to be able to make it. But and that's a good point, because Don and I, before we went back with the proposal to the school administrator, we sat over a beer actually and outlined with 6 volunteers. We had already surveyed our Rotarian group, our club, and with 6 volunteers, what did we feel we could do? So we were pretty cautious about how much we would extend ourselves so that we didn't fail right out of the chute.
And Dave, Betty had the question about choosing the schools. Were they chosen for you just based on need? Because you said there are only 3 schools. So you chose the 2 that didn't have any other help. Is that how they were chosen?
Yeah, there are 3 elementary schools in Stillwater proper. And as Don pointed out, there are 7 schools in the school district. So we have opportunity to expand to the other schools, but the 2 that we started out with were chosen for us.
Okay. And Newell, what would you explain the recognition that your program has gotten?
Yeah, well, in 2 ways. One is the school board recognized us formally, and it took time out of a school board meeting. We about a third of the volunteers showed up. We talked a little bit to the school board and made a little presentation to them. They formally passed a motion and recognized us. Secondly, the school district central administration was so pleased with the way the program was going that they had their public relations person come into the school. And these pictures that I'm showing you were taken by the school district, and with permission, we use them for our presentation. And there are, as you can imagine, quite a few other pictures that were taken. She then, she and I actually co-authored an article that was then put into the newsletter that went out to all the homes in the school district. And that gave us quite a bit of recognition and exposure. And we in the Stillwater Sunrise Rotary Club, we're working really hard right now on a visibility project for looking at how we make what we do to the community more visible. And this is my challenge as the Rotary lead on this program, is to now, as we start it up again, how do I put this program back in front of the community and keep the Rotary name in front of the community with what we're doing? Because this is really I think a good thing, what we're you know, kind of something that we should take some credit for here. And it's truly a benefit.
Absolutely. And Ted is interested in finding out, are there many students from families where English is not the primary language, and how does that impact on reading?
Yeah, we it's a good question, because at the Rutherford School, the two volunteers that are Rotary volunteers along with myself there, and who have been reading to students there, are have come back to me and said they have been giving a couple of their students, each of them are getting students who have either English as a second language, or it may not be the primary language at home, and they're taking tremendous. There was another quote which I didn't actually use from another Rotarian, and she pointed this out and said this is one of the things that really touches her heart, is that she's able to help this student read, and with her reading skills in English as a second language almost. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Newell asked about how many Rotarians are involved in the program, the percent of your membership are involved.
We have we've got a core group of 6 Rotarians out of our club, and we have about 5 to 6 community people who are also volunteering now. This is like I said, we hope to expand that number within the club. It's a little bit of a challenge to expand it beyond 6, because you either have to be retired or get release time from your work. And we do have 1 or 2 community members who do that. They get release time from their employer to do this. Their employer supports volunteer work, and their schedule might be a little different. I might juggle them in once a month or so, but yeah. So we have a club membership of about 57 members. So 6 people, we're running about 10%.
Okay. And is there an effort to get books into the homes of the students? Is that going to be part of your program, maybe?
Well, we haven't gone that direction yet, although at the rate at which we check books out and check books in, I would say they're getting into the homes. I'm going a little crazy some days, and there is a rule in these that a student can only have 3 or 4 books checked out at the one time. So sometimes I'm becoming a little bit of a cop, and trying to say, well, where are these other books before I check these new books out. Interestingly, though, as I've talked about this, just in my conversations through the community, I have picked up people who are so excited about this and supportive of it, that I've probably contributed somewhere between 50 and 100 books to these 2 libraries, because of people who come and say, I've got books sitting at home that are in good condition. I don't know where to go with them. I'm going to give them to you, and they give them to me, and I take them into the library. And then we have a new job, catalog the books and get them on the shelf.
Well, we want to thank the Stillwater Sunrise for this wonderful program, for Don and Dave for the presentation, and for all of you for being here. So thank you very much. It is almost 10 o'clock,